Education for the Blind presentation prepared by Princess Rhea Cruz. Its contents are the history and proponents of blind education, its definition and classification, its prevalence rate, and the teaching strategies that can be used in blind education, a discussion of a research study about the blind, reflection, and Bible verse. The ancient Egyptians were the first civilization to display an interest in the causes and cures for disabilities. During some periods, blind people are recorded as representing a substantial portion of the poets and musicians in the society. In the Middle Kingdom, blind harpists are depicted on tomb walls. They were also not exclusively interested in the causes and cures for blindness, but even the social care of the individual. Asylums for the industrious blind were established in Edinburgh and Bristol in the year 1765. But the first school anywhere to expressly teach the blind was set up by Henry Dennett in Liverpool as a school for the instruction of the indigent blind in 1791. It taught the blind children skills in manual crafts, although there was no formal education as such. Other institutions set up at the time were the School for the Indigent Blind in London and the Asylum and School for the Indigent Blind at Norwich. In France, another school was established in the year 1784 by Valentin Haoy. Haoy's impulse to help the blind began when he witnessed the blind being mocked during a religious street festival. In May 1784, he met a young blind beggar. He was his first student. He developed a method of raised letters to teach him to read and compose sentences. He made rapid progress and Haoy announced the success in September 1784, receiving encouragement from the French Academy of Sciences. With the help of philanthropic society, Haoy founded the Institute for Blind Youth. This was established in February 1785. Building on the philanthropic spinning workshop for the blind, the Institution of Blind Children was dedicated on 26th of December 1786. Its purpose was to educate students and teach them manual work like spinning and letterpress. After how many years, Louis Braille attended Haoy School in 1819 and later taught there. He soon became determined to fashion a system of reading and writing that could bridge the critical gap in communication between the sighted and the blind. In 1821, Braille learned of a communication system devised by Captain Charles Barbier of the French Army. This was called Barbier's night writing. It was a code of dots and dashes impressed into thick paper. This impression could be interpreted entirely by the fingers, letting soldiers share information on the battlefield without having lied or needing to speak. The captain's code turned out to be too complex to use in its original military form, but it inspired Braille to develop a system of his own. Braille worked tirelessly on his ideas, and his system was largely completed by the year 1824 when he was just 15 years of age. From Barbier's night writing, he innovated by simplifying its form and maximizing its efficiency. He made uniform columns for each letter, and he reduced the 12 raised dots to 6. He published his system in the year 1821, and by the second edition in 1837. It was discarded in dashes because they were too difficult to read. Crucially, Braille's smaller cells were capable of being recognized as letters with a single touch of a finger. The first school with a focus on proper education was established on the year 1835 and it was called Yorkshire School for the Blind. It was established in the country of England and its goal is to teach arithmetic, reading, and writing to the blind students. Now let's proceed with the definition and classification. What is blindness? Blindness is the inability to see anything, including light. If you're partially blind, you have limited vision, and if you're completely blind, it means you can't see anything at all. There are two kinds of blindness. First is the distance vision impairment, and the second is the near vision impairment. According to the World Health Organization, there are 1 billion people who may be considered as part of the category of being visually impaired. This is on the year 2020. These are the teaching strategies for the blind students. First is to always remember to use names upon addressing them. Don't just gesture, but to always verbalize. Correct seating is very crucial. You have to distinguish the right kinds of students who needs to stay in front and the students who can sit at the back. Be a confident sighted guide. Since your students, as they are blind, they will always be with you for their guide. Make sure that you can always be a master guide for them. The fifth teaching strategy is to provide a tactile learning experiences for the blind students. Remember that they appreciate more to be kinesthetically involved in the learning experiences that you provide for them. Sixth is to always give oral instructions. Remember that they will not appreciate or they will not understand if you would just provide visual materials for them. Make sure that your instructions or your materials for them is always in oral. Next is to ask students to clap to ask a question. You can make different kinds of methods or strategies for them to be able to give you a cue that they want to ask a question. And lastly, maintain a consistent classroom arrangement. Because blind students always familiarize their pathway going to the classroom, it is better to have one consistent arrangement for your classroom so that it is better to navigate and it would be faster for them to familiarize it. Here's a research study that I want to share to you, and this is about the brains of blind people. According to the research, it has shown that people who are born blind or become blind earlier in life often have a good sense of hearing, especially when it comes to musical abilities. This is a very important study for me since I am a teacher who wants to focus in the strength of my students rather than their weaknesses or their disability. This is also a good knowledge for me to know which ability or strength is needed to be developed or is needed to be emphasized. Since they're very good musically, then it is good to form lesson activities and to make ways to emphasize musical lessons to them that they may be able to sharpen their abilities and talents. Lastly, to end my report, I would like to share to you this wonderful text found in Isaiah 35, verse 5. And when he comes, he will open the eyes of the blind and unplug the ears of the deaf. It is beautiful to give hope to our blind students that their blindness is just temporary. When Jesus comes, their eyes will finally be opened, and finally they'll be able to see the wondrous sight of their heavenly home. These are the references for my presentation. May God bless you.